if you're interested at all in how I came to be employed at this sort of hospital, I might go over that in my next post. If that kind of thing doesn't really matter to you, let me go on to tell you about one of my first patients and what I really do. You see, the job is at its core just a job. I'm a male nurse at a hospital. You should pray to God every night that you will never visit. Its name is Dearth Mercy Hospital, pronounced like dearth. My job is patient care, but unlike every other hospital in the world, patient care comes second at Dearth Mercy. Self-preservation comes first. That's because we don't deal with things a regular hospital takes care of. You can't come here with a bad cough, unless, of course, it's related to inhaling dust from a cursed antique store. I've seen it. You don't just get sent here after a car accident, unless you hit a creature that wails like a siren when in pain and causes your eardrums to explode. No, the kind of patients we get are the ones babbling about how they should have followed set rules. Look, before all this, I wouldn't have cared either way, but if you've seen some of the things I've seen, Jesus, people, follow the rules. We also see some variation or subclass of a Wendigo that has killed your friends and has your scent. That one's pretty common, and a lot of people generally get sent to our psych wards because of the PTSD that comes with being a victim of horror. One guy accidentally created some kind of AI in one of his games he was developing. He felt so bad for what his game did to the AI that he tried to kill himself. One kid befriended a sort of avenging child abuse creature thing named Rasp that killed his father and a kid he went to school with. So now the kid is afraid if he's accidentally rude to anyone that Rasp will come for him. I've seen a lot of crazy. But one of my first patients was a guy that had growths inside of him, not tumors or anything like that. This was some kind of living thing inside of him that fed off of what he was eating. I wish it just ate his normal diet, but it made him crave things normal people shouldn't be craving. At the first hospital, he was medicated with who knows what and sent home when the docs there just thought he was getting fat, since nothing showed up on the ultrasound. Eventually, though, he was sent to Dearth Mercy. Someone at his regular hospital recognized that he was a victim of some kind of horror, and they acted as a liaison to get him to us. That person probably saved this man's life. The patient, named Derek, don't worry about HIPAA or anything like that. Everything's been adjusted for privacy. Well, he came in complaining of stomach pains. Obviously, like I said, nobody gets sent to this hospital for regular stuff, so we knew it was something more. When he came in, he was clutching a half-eaten, rotting carcass of what looked like a cat. He was literally talking to us in between bites. It was a strange conversation. "Sir, is that your cat?" I asked him, thoroughly grossed out because this was my first real patient at Dearth Mercy. He lifted the cat and looked at it. This? God, no. I wouldn't eat mittens. This is, well, I don't want to say. It's disgusting. The other nurse with me, Archie, made a face. "Sir, you're eating a cat. What can be more disgusting than that?" I was kind of shocked he said that because I was taught bedside manners at my previous hospitals. But Archie had a point. "I know it's a cat," the patient exploded. "You think I don't know that? It's roadkill, okay? Cats, deer, dogs, coons. I can't stop myself from eating whatever I see on the side of the road. I'm gonna throw up." He leaned over to puke, and what came next was even worse than what he'd just told me. He threw up, but something whipped out of his throat along with the vomit. It was like a tentacle, and it literally caught the bits of cat and bile before they could hit the ground, then pulled it all back into his throat. The man made a nasty slurshing and gobbling sound as it went straight back into him. I thank God did not have any tentacles inside me, so when I reactively threw up, it all did hit the ground. I couldn't stop it. Seeing that, smelling that, I didn't stand a chance. Archie wasn't new. It didn't make him throw up, but he did step back from us and point to the bin. Jesus, aim for the damn can next time, he ordered. Sorry, I said. I looked at the patient who was eyeing my spill on the floor. You didn't eat meat today, did you? He asked. His eyes begged me to say no. Thankfully I hadn't. Just eggs and toast, I replied. He sighed relief, then took a bite of the cat in his hand. Archie proceeded to get the man's personal information while I cleaned up my mess. We followed the standard protocol of any hospital, minus the insurance parts, and after the basics, we asked the unique questions. Have you come into contact with any cursed items? Have you made any deals with demons, genies, witches, minor deities, or gods, etc.? Have you consumed human flesh in the last 48 hours? Have you seen anything strange or unusual outside of your current symptoms? Have you recently moved to a new townhouse where strange things occur? This one was a hit. Yes, new town. I thought it was just a weird group or something at first, but they pray to a streetlight in the mornings, he said, chewing on the meat of the cat. Archie turned to me. By now my sickness was cleaned up, and I was standing by learning. So, some towns generally have either a cult, or even the whole town. They'll have a deal with a creature or horror of some kind, and have to perform some kind of ritual. It's important to get as much info on the ritual as we can, so the lab can determine what the horror is and how to treat it. Then he handed me the clipboard. You finish this, I'll see if Dr. Mathos is available. Then he exited the room, calmly and casually, as if he saw things like this all the time. I know now that's exactly the case. I turned to Derek and offered a friendly, reassuring smile. Okay, can you tell me what time they pray to the light? I asked. 3:45 in the morning. Every morning. First time I saw it, I just woke up about 3:30. Couldn't go back to sleep. Then I heard them outside. Okay, and do you normally wake up randomly? No. I take medication to help me sleep. But ever since I moved there, I wake up at 3:30 every morning. I watch them from my living room. Men, women, kids. They all go to a certain street light and pray to it. Okay. And does anything happen while they pray to it? Or can you hear what they're saying? I asked, reading off the questions on the form. He shook his head and pulled bloody fur from his mouth. He gagged, then took another bite of the mostly eaten cat. The light flickers, then they all go back home. Are they doing this to me? Because I'm not praying with them? He asked nervously. I don't know. I'm sort of new here, the doctor should be able to tell you. Right then, by chance, the doctor stepped in, with Archie behind him. He greeted us both, then took the clipboard from my hand. He read it silently, then handed it back. You mind lying back for me, Derek? He asked. The patient nodded, then sat back. The doctor began to touch the man's stomach carefully. Each time he pressed down, a bulge would appear and slither away as if a snake was underneath his skin. When did you first experience the eating of roadkill? Dr. Matos asked. Derek took a deep breath. The weight of his stomach seemed to hinder his breathing in that position. 2 days ago, before that, I was hungry for everything else. I cleaned out my kitchen. I've put on 15 pounds in 6 days. I went to the hospital, but they said I had some kind of eating disorder. No shit. The doctor helped him sit back up, then took his own seat on a stool nearby. Well, they do the best they can. From what you've told us, and from what I can feel, you have a necro growth inside of you. Your town wakes you up at 3:30 every morning, so that you can join the others at the streetlight and pray to it. Since you haven't been doing that, the deity or creature residing over the town has given you a craving for dead meat. Unchecked, it will consume rotting flesh, roadkill, until it suffocates your airways, then eats you from the inside out. What? That's crazy, Derek said in shock. Yeah, says the man currently eating roadkill, the doc said. My eyebrows jumped up in surprise as Derek glanced at the matted, stinking carcass in his hand. Can I move out of the town?" the patient asked. "You could, but you'd still wake up at 3:30, and if you move, you will have less time to get to the street light. We can do two things: an internal ripping of the necro growth through surgery, risky but quick. Or we can send you home, and if you start praying to the streetlight with everyone else, the growth will die of starvation once the hunger goes away, and you'll pass it naturally." Derek looked at the doc, stunned. He looked at the roadkill in his hand. "Internal ripping? How risky are we talking? If the growth has wrapped around your heart, the surgery has an 80% chance of killing you. If not, it's a 70% chance of killing you. And if I go back and pray to the streetlight, it goes away? Then I can move out of that town?" he asked. The doc smiled at him. "We can hope, but I can't guarantee it won't come back if you stop or move away." The patient tearfully pulled another cut of meat from the carcass with his teeth. "Why is this happening?" he asked, his tone a bit defeated. The doctor stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder, as doctors do. "Things like this have been around long before us. We just developed around them for the most part. Different towns have different secrets. In my opinion, go home, pray to the damn streetlight, get better. We will have counselors follow up with you." The patient nodded as he chewed. The doctor left the room. That was my first patient. That was after orientation, and after I'd been told what to expect. But how can anyone prepare for that? How can anyone brace themselves for learning about places like that and people affected by them? Archie had me do the discharge paperwork, and a black ambulance took Derek away. It was the last time I saw him, and I still don't know if the growth killed him, or if every morning he prays to the streetlight in his town, along with everyone else. I saw a lot of strange things during my first week at Dearth Mercy. Each one is more bizarre than the last in its own way. Before I go, I'll tell you about one more patient. This one had a doll's face. She literally took a doll's face off and sewed it onto her own. It was hard to hear her through the material, and the face was so tightly sewn to her own skin that whenever she talked, the movement of her jaw pulled on the stitches, causing them to bleed. I thought it was some form of insanity. Almost thought, why was she here at this hospital? People have done crazier things than that. Until the doll's face began to answer my questions in its own soft girlish voice. The lips moved, and the eyes looked at me. "You're cute. He's cute, isn't he?" the doll asked while looking at me. "Please leave me alone," the girl underneath whispered. "I know you think he's cute. Will he play with us? I bet he wants to," the doll said. At this, the girl, as if on strings like a puppet, reached forward and touched my chest. I stepped backward, and the girl turned away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that wasn't me," she whimpered. "He knows it wasn't you, you dumb woman. Turn back around so he can see me." Then the voice became sing-songy. "Turn to him, or I'll hurt you again." And she turned to me, the doll's face smiling sickly, and a mixture of blood and tears streaming from underneath. "Ugh, you're such a bore. No wonder you think so little of yourself," the doll face said to the girl. I was relieved when the doctor came in with silver scissors. We held the patient down and proceeded to cut the stitches from her face, all while the mask screamed for us to stop. When the last stitch was severed, the doll's face fell silent and lifeless. The girl underneath was beautiful, but the way she hid her face made it obvious that she didn't think that way. When I asked the doctor how a doll's face could have latched onto her like that, he told me something more frightening than I expected. The doll's face wasn't the problem. It was how she saw herself. She made this happen. She put on the mask and gave it life. We see it often. Sometimes it's a doll's face, and sometimes it's another human's face, People aren't happy with how they look. It's not always an item or place that's the problem. Anyways, that's some of the stuff I experienced just in my first week at Dearth Mercy Hospital. I hope I never see any of you there, but from what I've been seeing online and whatnot, a few of you might end up here, one way or the other.
She's in here with us, my friend.
The infectious disease clinic in any hospital is a very dangerous place. So, you can imagine how I felt when I had my first experience with the Dearth Mercy Hospital's infectious disease clinic. I worried about a lot of things once I started working in such a bizarre setting. After seeing things like the roadkill eating man and dollface just in my first week, I knew that things were going to get increasingly gruesome and dangerous. At orientation, which took place about 2 days after I signed onto this hospital, I was told that I would be getting full-body diagnostics and blood tests done daily, and weekly therapy sessions. The therapy would become as needed once my probationary period was over. I remember how crazy that sounded to me. Blood tests daily. It made me feel like I was going to work at the Center for Disease Control or something. When I brought that up to the man that hired me, he laughed. He actually laughed and said, quote, "The CDC is the Boy Scouts, and we're the Marines." I thought it was one of those humble brags until I saw a classroom filled with CDC agents literally being taught by one of our administrators about identifying horrific diseases and ailments. You see, that's how we get our patients. That's the only way the rest of the world doesn't see the terrible things we see. It's because someone at every hospital, every clinic, even some of the school nurses, are ours. Not all of them, of course. You probably know a bunch of men and women in the medical field, and might I add that we do not give women in this field enough credit. Did you know about 9% of nurses are men? The rest are women. And this job, even before I started at Dearth Mercy, is a thankless, mentally and physically scarring job. Seriously, women, I applaud you. Anyways, we have people in every medical setting and company in the world. They look just like you and me, and might even be the lazy guy that seems entirely useless and still somehow has a job. It's because they're one of ours, and when a victim of horror comes into your clinic, they are the ones that contact us. They'll deny everything, of course, but those people make more salary from us than your best doctor. So where was I? Right, the infectious disease clinic. It was on my 3rd week of working at Dearth Mercy. That's 3 weeks of daily blood tests before and after every shift. Painless, but tedious. I thought it was a bit of overkill because all I had seen while working the main floors were physical ailments. I'm not quite ready to talk about my rotation on the psych ward. That messed me up. So I'm seeing things like the group of teenagers that accidentally summoned Asnafu, which is apparently some kind of succubus that drains men dry. And I mean, drains them. Apparently, what started as a really good time ended with red fluids coming out of places no guy wants to see blood coming out of. Just weird things like that. Then came the infectious diseases. Archie was still my mentor at the time. It was my last week under him, and we saw a patient whose mouth was getting wider and wider. It was spreading so fast that we could literally watch the skin in the cheeks splitting apart, and his lips had started to curl upwards. It was incredibly painful for the patient, as you can imagine. It was a Joker smile like the movie, but without the scars, as the wounds were still open and getting worse. The first thing we did was glove up, of course, and begin to clean the wounds. It was difficult because of the saliva and blood mixing together. It just seemed like the cleaning rags we were using couldn't absorb enough of the wetness. We had to insert a drain tube into the patient's mouth to keep them from swallowing any more blood, as per the doctor's orders, since he was too busy on another patient to come straight in. So we cleaned and wiped and did our best to keep the patient's mouth from splitting further, but so much damage was already done that the splitting had reached halfway to his ears, which made him a sobbing, drooling mess that moaned in agony. Then I heard a sniffle, and I reflexively stepped back. Archie did not. He must have thought it was a crying sniffle. The patient sneezed with a loud cry of pain, and several things happened all at once. His mouth tore all the way to the ears with a sound like, well, I don't know. It's hard to explain how skin sounds being ripped, maybe like wet Scotch tape. The sneeze rocked his head forward, then back, and the pain caused him to black out. The sneeze also sent blood and mucus flying forward into Archie's face. In hindsight, we should have been wearing masks, face shields, or better PPE gear, but normally we just wear gloves when dealing with intake patients who aren't showing signs of obvious disease. You might be wondering why, when we deal with the insane things we do, we wear so little protective gear. The general idea is these other natural things don't usually abide by standard laws. If something wants to get you, it simply will through your protection. That, and we thought this was something along the lines of what we handle every day, a cursed person, place, or thing, and those aren't generally contagious. It may seem obvious now, but a lot of times these horrors have a method to them. They aren't just chaos, as you would think. It's usually a cause and effect. But in the end, this was on us. On Archie, really. He was the trainer. He should have known what to look for, as it was only my 3rd week. Archie fell back onto the floor and started wiping his face clean of the blood and snot. I dove to the sink and soaked some paper towels to hand him. I started dropping them onto him as fast as I could, and they made a soft plop sound, one after another. And he was wiping himself off quickly, then discarding them beside him. No, 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 he kept repeating as he wiped his face, neck, hands. What do I do? What do you need me to do? I asked quickly, clearly in a panic. He stood up and looked at himself in the mirror, inspecting every pore on his face carefully, before he turned to me. Nothing, I think I'm all right. Did any of it get on you? He asked. I shook my head. No, I'm fine. Are you? Maybe you should get checked out, he said back sharply. It didn't make any sense when just a moment ago his face was splattered in blood. No, really, it all got on you, I said, sort of my way of saying if anyone should get checked it would be him. He cursed and spit into the sink. No, I'm fine. Go to the 5th floor, go get checked out. I'll take care of the patient. I didn't have any standing, still just my 3rd week, so I did what I was told. The 5th floor, underground mind you, the entirety of Dearth Mercy Hospital is underground, was for viral, bacterial, and other natural infections. This was where all testing was done. I had never actually been to this floor, as every blood test I had done was administered by the tester for my main floor. Each floor has a tester that checks people in and out of every shift via blood tests. Then we get the full body diagnostics when we leave to make sure nothing visible or invisible latched onto us during our shift. When I got to the reception, I was pleased to see one of the guys I had met on my first day. Hey, Jones, right? I asked. He looked up, then smiled wide. Not too wide, thankfully. Alec. Duffy. Duff. I laughed. Alec Duff, yeah? Hey man, how are ya? How's Dearth Mercy treating you? He asked. I gave him the look. He nodded with big eyes. Bro, I feel that hard. This place is insane. I don't know what I expected when I took this job, but this wasn't it. He seemed to just now realize I wasn't here to chat. "Oh, are you all right? Did you need something?" I shrugged a little bit. "I'm not sure. My trainer got blood on him and sent me here to get tested." Jones looked at me with the same odd look I would have given him. "That doesn't make much sense, but all right. Give me a second, I'll have someone test you." "Thanks, Jones." He nodded once more, then picked up his desk phone. I sat, looking at my hands, looking at the white tile floor and the pristine room around me, and couldn't help but imagine some of those blood and snot particles getting onto my skin. Maybe I inhaled something. Maybe it got trapped in the wet of my eye and I just hadn't felt it. A million maybes crossed my mind, and I felt my heartbeat start to pick up. Thankfully, a door nearby opened and someone in a full white oxygen-inflated suit came out. It didn't make me feel better to see that, but at least I was getting tested. "Hold your left arm out and turn it over," they instructed. I did so. They slowly set a blank white card over my arm. It was a little cold and damp, so it took the shape of the underside of my arm. I didn't feel a thing. Then a green line appeared on top of the card. The person peeled it off and set it in a bag, then handed me the bag. "You're clear," they said, then returned through the door they had come from. "All good, man," Jones said. "Take that to your supervisor and they'll clear you." I sighed in relief, felt my heart rate go back to normal. "Thanks, Jones," I said back. As I reached for the door, he called out, "Hey, maybe send your trainer in. If he's training you, he should have known to get tested." I agreed and went back to my main floor, still holding that bagged clear card in my hands. When I got to my floor, I knew that Archie should have been the one to get tested. Other nurses were standing around or shuffling back and forth as a doctor yelled, "Get me covered, damn it!" With his hands out in front of him, two nurses scrambled to drape PPE gear over him, long-sleeved gloves and a full-face mask with oxygen tanks. I stepped out of the elevator and really wished I hadn't. The patient lay on the ground. His face was now slit almost off, with the top half of the skin around his head peeling and curling up over his eyes, while he writhed in pain on the floor. Archie stood facing the mirror, still trying his hardest to keep his face from splitting and curling up as well. The deep lines had already given him the Joker smile, and his fingers were too wet with blood to do much more. Another nurse stood away from him, his mouth slammed closed with thin splits starting to form. The crowd of about 4 nurses and the doctor were stepping back further and further. "Hang on, Archie. Keep your mouth closed whatever you do. Same with you, Chung," the doctor said to the 2 nurses against the walls. I heard drilling noises, and my eyes looked up to see several people in skin-tight hazmat gear installing drop-down vinyl curtains on the ceiling around us. Some of the nurses stepped back out of the soon-to-be isolated zone, and they were shoved back in immediately. I was outside of the zone, since the elevators were back far enough. "The patient," Chung said, trying to keep his mouth closed. The doctor shook his head. "Don't worry about him. I'm going to save you first, then Archie, and the patient if I can. Damn it. Am I secure yet?" he shouted. One of the nurses tapped his shoulder and slid a small white bag forward towards the 2 nurses. "You're good." The doctor, with his secure face mask on and sealed bodysuit, rushed forward. He grabbed Chung's face immediately and opened his mouth to look inside. I couldn't hear it because of the vinyl, but I saw blood drip down Chung's cheeks. The doctor opened the bag and pulled out 2 of the same cards that had just gone on my arm. He slapped them onto each side of Chung's face. They turned black immediately. But this apparently was part of the solution too, because Chung stopped moaning in pain and looked better. He went to touch his face, but the doctor smacked his hands away. "Leave them, and for God's sake, don't touch your eyes." The other nurses then slid in a gurney through the vinyl. The doctor helped Chung onto it and covered him with a see-through vinyl that zipped and sealed him off entirely. The doc then sprayed the entire gurney down and slid it back out of the containment zone. I watched as the men in skin-tight hazmat suits rushed him into the elevator. One stayed behind as the other went down. The doc went to Archie and spun him around. Archie, just like the patient, then sneezed, covering the doctor's face mask in blood and mucus. The doctor didn't even jump. He just wiped it clean and pulled a large white cloth roll from the bag. It looked soggy, just like the cards. Archie, pull it down, as much of it as you can, he instructed. Archie whimpered and pulled his face back down. The pain must have been incredible. The doctor then began to wrap Archie's neck and face with the wet cloth, around and around again, until Archie looked like he had come from the burn unit or something. The entire wrapping started to turn black, but Archie calmed down. And as the next gurney went in, the doctor repeated the process, sending Archie to the elevator as well. Only the patient remained. The skin around his head and face had peeled all the way up to the crown of his head. He had stopped moving or making noises. The doctor knelt beside him and checked his pulse. It's there. Jesus, this guy. He looked at the white bag, then shook his head and motioned for another gurney. Without covering him with the same wet cure-all material he had used, the doctor sealed up the patient, sprayed the gurney down, and slid him out. He and Archie rode the elevator down to 5 together. The doctor then sprayed himself and every inch of the contained area. After a few minutes, he pulled out another white card, held it up, waved it around, looked at it, then took off his mask and stepped out of the zone. He sighed as he began to discard the protective gear. I felt gross, disgusting, infected. I looked at my hands again, thinking somehow this thing had gotten to me. The doctor noticed. Alec, you were in there with Archie when the patient came in, he said. Did you get anything on you? No, I said back. No, and I got tested anyways, but Archie... I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to throw him under the bus for not getting tested himself. The doc nodded. Archie did the right thing. He had you tested and called a code. If you had stayed around him, you would have gotten it too. Cheng, stupid bastard, tried to help the patient before we could cover him. Anyways, I know you're new here. Just remember, self-preservation comes first. The patients are second. And that was it. That was my first experience with the infectious disease part of Dearth Mercy. I visited Archie afterward. He was fine, thankfully, with very small, hardly noticeable scars at the corners of his mouth. Cheng didn't even get scars since they had gotten to him in time. The patient survived, painfully, and has about a dozen surgeries before his face looks even remotely normal again. I got tested again when I clocked out that day. It was clear again, thank God. But when I left, I heard a familiar giggle and a female's voice coming from behind one of the curtains. And here we are again, with everyone looking at us. Oh, I wonder if that cute nurse is here. Maybe he can cut me off your stupid face this time. Before I was scouted out to work at Dearth Mercy Hospital, I was a regular nurse at a regular hospital. I saw the everyday horrors, the injuries from stupidity or accidents, abuse and natural illnesses. Some of those things I would see and think, my God, how is this person alive? Or, it's only a matter of time for them. And it sucked. It sucked getting to know my patients, talking to them, learning about who they were and how whatever brought them to the hospital happened. Some patients I only saw while treating them, and some stayed in the hospital for days. I didn't exactly follow up with them, because I did see a lot of patients. But if I heard their name or something, I would ask about them. Nurses develop that sort of bond, the one where we hope they never come back, or if they do, that it's something very small that we can handle easily for them. This all is triplefold at Dearth Mercy, where the things that brought our patients in are anything from cosmic horrors to nail-eating fungi. That one was disgusting. A couple came in after their honeymoon. By the time the black ambulance brought them in, they had already lost most of their toenails and some fingernails to this grey and green-looking mold thing. It was furry and smelled, but no matter what kind of generic treatment we gave it, the fungi just continued to eat their nails and spread from one finger to the other. I'm not sure what would have happened if left untreated. But the first thing we did was determine if it was contagious. The lip-splitting man fiasco apparently was worse than I had thought that day. That first patient had infected the black ambulance drivers, as well as 2 nurses at the regular hospital they had been taken to before us. We were able to treat our drivers as they returned to us at the first signs of the infection. But of the 2 nurses at the regular hospital that were affected, we only got to one of them in time. The other was found dead. So, the new protocol was an ingenious method developed by Dr. Logos. He was the doctor on hand during the lip splitting, and it was he that saved Archie, Chung, and the patient by rapid use of the white cloth material. So now, that's the material our scrubs are made of. I don't know the logistics of it, but should we come into contact with anything contagious in any way, the very material on our scrubs will not only change colors depending on the severity of the contamination, but it will also become wet by chemical reaction and begin treating us immediately. Truly remarkable. If I knew anyone at the R&D department, I would go down there and shake their hand. This new safety measure ensures that we can keep safe without having to fully cover ourselves in hazmat suits for every patient. I asked the obvious thing to one of my co-workers, Shaylin. Why is this just now being developed? What did you do in the past for safety? For our safety? We didn't treat the patient most of the time, is what she told me, and I could tell by the look on her face that she was the same as me. We both hated and respected the cardinal rule of Dearth Mercy Hospital. Patient care comes second, self-preservation comes first. Anyways, the fungus was a living organism that spread nail to nail on the host. Thankfully, it was not contagious outside of the main host. When we went through the list of possible causes and found nothing, we had to ask them for a step-by-step of their honeymoon. That was interesting. These newlyweds went for a nighttime stroll through a graveyard near their bed and breakfast. Not all that weird in this line of work. The husband, however, heard something in one of the fresh graves, calling from underground, so he rushed to it and began digging with his hands. The wife joined in, clawing away at the fresh dirt covering the grave. The dirt obviously got under their nails, and by the time they had realized the screaming had stopped, they noticed their fingertips were bleeding and painful. They went to the hospital, a hospital not equipped to deal with this. The nails were cleaned and wrapped and handled as best they could, but in the end they needed to take a ride in a black ambulance to us. Grave dirt apparently usually contains the mold that feeds on the nails of the deceased, since nails continue to grow when really the body dehydrates, and the nails just appear to look longer. But either way, the mold takes advantage of this and begins to consume the nails. It runs rampant in most graveyards, so please, don't go digging any graves up by hand. Or at all. The odd part of it all was what had screamed for them in that casket. These patients were really nice people that didn't deserve what happened to them. This whole story comes full circle to the fact that they were good people. They were nice and kind, and I hope to never see them again. And so far, I haven't. But if I did, I would recognize them and talk to them, because they were my patients. Dollface was not my patient at the time. Not like she wanted to be. The first time she came in was when Dr. Mathos had to cut the doll face off her with silver scissors. I remember seeing that plastic and rubber face scream and scream until the last stitch was cut. Then it fell silent, inanimate, lifeless. The second time she came in was the end of my shift, when the lip splitting happened. Since I was on my way out, I didn't have a chance to see her or talk to her. The third time was about 3 weeks after that. I was wrapping up my rotation with the emergency intake treatment. The system for new employee nurses is that we work 3 weeks on in each department in no particular order. After the end of the full rotation, we can choose to continue rotating, or we can set ourselves in a certain department. Jones, for example, the guy that started the same day I did. He's not a nurse, he's an administrator, so he was put in a department directly. No rotations. Remember, anyone can be scouted to work at Dearth Mercy. We have everything your normal hospital has. So, if you really want to work here, you just have to do so well at your job that one of ours notices you. From doctors and nurses to custodians, meal servers, electricians, maintenance, we have it all. So I'm finishing my rotation with treatment. I have a firm grasp on how to do everything. And how to call codes, when to ask for help, and when to pull doctors in if something is beyond me, which it was. When I got to her room, she was dancing. No music or anything. Just her in a black dress, spinning slowly, one hand up in the air and her other hand touching her wrist, then slowly sliding down all the way to her shoulder. She danced for a minute or two longer, then noticed me. "Oh," said the doll's face and the mousy voice underneath at the same time. The girl stepped back and turned away. Then her hand shot up as if pulled on strings, like some invisible puppet master was above her. She pointed at me while looking away. "There he is. We were looking for you. Weren't we?" she sung, dragging out the word, "we." "No, I wasn't," whispered a voice underneath the mask. "Oh, you're so boring. You want him," snapped the doll's face in her high-pitched girlish voice. I cleared my throat. "Lena, is it?" She nodded, but the mask spoke. "Ooh, that's us. The mask is different. You're not the same as the first time I saw you," I said to her. The girl looked up, or at least her head made the looking up motion. It's hard to tell through the mask that spoke. Of course it's not the same. You people cut us off, so we had to get a new face. Do you like it? She traced the edges of the mask, edges that were sewn directly into flesh. Then the eyes narrowed, and the mouth became thin. I said, "Do you like it?" she barked. "Leave him alone. I'm sorry," the voice underneath said. I held up my hands. "It's all right. I'm here to figure out if this is going to keep happening. Can you tell me a little about what's going on?" The doll's eyes rolled, and she twirled and curtsied, then did a small ballet bounce. I don't know what they're called. "She's insecure, she's weak, she's ugly, she's fat," cooed the mask. And I. The doll face smiled and slipped a finger underneath the shoulder of her dress. She teased the lowering of it. "I am beautiful, don't you think? Would you like to see more of me?" I didn't respond at first. They don't exactly teach us how to handle split personality, defined by a speaking mask. But something did stick out to me when she raised and lowered the shoulder of the black dress. "More of you?" I echoed. At this, the doll face lit up, and she twirled closer to me. "Would you like to see more?" she asked quickly. I shook my head. "But that's not you. What you want to show me That's Lena's body, not yours. The girl stopped moving. My body, said Lena underneath. The doll's eyes darted left and right nervously. My body, howled the mask. Lena reached up to the mask and touched one of the stitches. Her arm shot to the side like it was yanked on strings. The sudden force caused her to lose balance and stagger to the side. Don't touch me, screamed the mask. Lena reached up again, and again her arm was yanked away by an invisible force, officially making me realize that I had no idea how to handle this. I stood up and opened the door, peeked outside, and saw another nurse walking by. I grabbed his shoulder. Can you get a doctor in here? I asked him. He nodded and looked inside. Yeah, why? What's going on? How can I say I'm in over my head? How can I say I don't know how to talk to two patients occupying one space? Do I treat Lena to get rid of the doll's face? Or do I convince the doll's face to leave its host? What do I do when one is attacking the other? Luckily for me, not so much for Lena, I didn't have to say anything to the other nurse, because Lena/Dollface pushed past me and let themselves out into the hall. She danced and twirled and bounced down the hallway, singing loudly, "This is mine, mine, mine all the time." The nurse beside me opened his eyes wide and went down the hall. He opened a door and leaned in. I hoped to talk to someone that could help me. "Lena," I called out, as she moved gracefully through the thin crowd that made up the main floor of Dearth Mercy. Dollface twirled and cocked her head to the side. "She's not here," she said simply, then started dancing around the large room again, dodging around nurses and patients. One of the doors opened, and an older female doctor stepped out, closing the door behind her. This was the room my fellow nurse had gone to. "What's going on out here?" she asked quickly, her voice sharp and steady. Dollface danced further away. "I'm sorry, Doctor, she's mine," I said, realizing I didn't know the doctor's name. She noticed this and rolled her eyes. "Learn to control your patience, Alec, or we'll get someone that can," she snapped. Clearly she knew me. The doctor brushed past me and went to Dollface. "Ma'am, I need you to stop," she said calmly, controlling her tone like a conductor leads a symphony. "Ma'am? That sounds old." "We're not old," Dollface said with a wicked smile. A smile that looked like it came from someone holding a knife, which thankfully she wasn't. But it did give me that eerie feeling. "Lena Woodson, age 24, self-mutilation through the attachment of a doll's face, severe dissociative disorder," the doctor said calmly. "Lena, I think you should have been admitted the last time you were here. I was coming to see you next." Lena stopped dancing. "Admitted? To where?" she asked from under the mask. The doctor stepped forwards, along with two large security guards that seemingly came out of nowhere. "Admitted to the psych ward, where we can treat you at the source, and not just cut the mask off you again." Her hands went to her mask, a mask that smiled and looked up at the ceiling, fainting innocence. "Do you love it?" the mask asked. I could only imagine how Lena felt underneath. The two guards gently grabbed onto Lena's shoulders. She looked at each of their hands and dropped her head. The mask lifted it back up. "Big, strong men, do you like my face?" she asked, turning her head side to side. Then she attempted to free herself by darting forwards. The guards held her firmly, which caused her to squirm and pick her feet up off the ground. "Let me go! Don't touch me!" she screamed. The doctor stepped back as the guards took Lena to the elevator. All while Dollface fought and howled, I heard her screams until the elevator was no longer on the floor. I turned to the doctor. At first I didn't really know what to say. I felt like all of my skills and experience as a nurse before coming to this hospital were a waste, when everything I knew was for helping normal people with normal things. Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't stop her. I apologized. The doctor looked at me with tired eyes. They don't teach you how to handle everything, because everything changes all the time. You can't prepare for stuff like this until you see it, she said firmly. Have you seen this a lot? The whole doll face thing? I asked. She shrugged. Unfortunately, it's more often another person's face. Then we must treat them as a problem more than as a victim. With Lena, we will be able to treat her properly. How? I asked. You haven't done your psych ward rotation yet, she said. Not a question. No, ma'am, I replied. She looked at me. Things are different in psych. The treatment, the patients. Do you think what you've seen down here is bad? This is a cakewalk. She noticed my hesitation at responding and leaned in closer to me. You're new here. You're still surprised by what comes through the doors. Psych is different. A girl with a doll's face sewn on her own is nothing. In psych, we treat victims of horrors you don't have the imagination for. Gods, devils, shadows. She huffed a laugh. I've been treating a patient since 1966 who saw the Mothman once, and every day he asks me to kill him. Every day for 55 years, she said, her eyes permanently veined and red from age. And I treat patients that were once doing the same rotation you are now. I still didn't say anything. What on earth could I say? She nodded at me. Smart enough to be quiet at least. I'll see you in a few days, Alec. And with that, she left me, standing alone on the main floor as it returned to business as usual. Nurses saw to their patients. Paperwork was completed. Doctors mended what they could. I looked around, taking it all in, looking at the faces of the employees of Dearth Mercy Hospital, looking at the faces of patients, bloodied, beaten, deformed, eaten, tear-streaked, all of them victims of horrors. In the days leading up to my rotation on the psych ward, I tried my best to prepare myself for what I could see. I read the literature, the studies on psychiatric care. I watched movies and YouTube documentaries on mental illness and its treatments. No matter what I looked for, a certain theme would reappear in the related category: horror. Haunted asylums, hospitals, wards, visions of patients wrapped in white straitjackets, rocking back and forth, muttering wildly to themselves while drooling, are the go-to image when it comes to mental illness in the horror genre. The truth is more or less disturbing. Sure, you have those patients, but they are few and far between for the most part. During my career as a regular nurse at a regular hospital, we had a psych floor. I did my rotation. The patients were also normal. Depressed people, stressed people, some who just needed an escape from reality. Insane, maybe by definition. But aren't we all? We just collectively decided that this state of mind was the right one, and anyone out of it was psychotic. I don't know, just something to think about. I started my first day of psych like any other. I drove to the parking garage that was the only visible part of Dearth Mercy Hospital. 2 floors of parking with a hallway of elevators that only went down. The furthest number anyone could press was 9, but rumor has it a 10th floor does exist. The psych floor is on 9. So, for the first time ever, I pressed the button and felt the elevator drop. Soft, melodic music played from the speakers, and I felt relaxed. These patients were already being treated, and I'm no doctor, so I didn't really think I'd have much hands-on involvement anyways. I had never been so wrong. When the elevator opened, the older lady doctor happened to be standing at the front desk, possibly waiting on me since a place like this kept me from believing in coincidence. Alec, right on time, she said with a weathered smile. I'm guessing she used to smile a lot, and maybe she still did sometimes. Dearth Mercy had to have put a strain on that smile. It was there, but it looked slightly forced. Oh, I did learn her name and repeated it several times to myself so I wouldn't forget it. Dr. Marzell, good evening, I said to her. She nodded and turned her head, gesturing me to follow her. The front desk was the entryway, where two admins sat working at their computers. I can't begin to guess what they worked at, but part of their job was the security of the main door. As we made our way to it, I heard a little buzz sound, and Dr. Marzell pushed the door open with ease. My first thought at seeing the psych floor, tame. A vast open room with patients, nurses, and doctors walking around casually. Tables and chairs, various board games, video games connected to televisions, and shelves filled with books. It looked so normal, aside from the patients themselves, which I only noticed after my initial sweep. This is the main room. Beyond this are the glass rooms, obviously not made of actual glass, for the isolated patients that are a risk to others, and beyond that lies the dark rooms for patients at risk to themselves and everyone else, Marzell explained while walking fully into the main room. Today we will be talking to a few on the main floor. She walked between patients that stepped aside for her, and she made her way to another nurse's desk at the very center of the room, where she picked up several papers of which she handed to me. I have selected a few patients I think you should meet. They aren't dangerous. I'll be with you. What I want you to do is talk to them. What do you want me to say to them? I asked her, very curious how or what I would be learning. She smiled at me as if the answer was obvious. Whatever comes to mind. I want to see you in your element is all. Talking to these patients is treating these patients, she said simply. I looked down at the first paper and read out loud. Aaron Mack. Lance Corporal Aaron Mack. Yes, he's right over there. She nodded gently to a corner of the room and led me to him. He was a very normal-looking man, wearing a black t-shirt and blue scrub patient pants and a slightly grown military fade. He sat with his back to the wall and looked around the room, his eyes stopping on us as we approached him. Once we were close enough, he stood up and greeted us. "Mom," he said to Marzell. Then he looked at me and extended a hand to shake. I hated having to do it, but I turned to Dr. Marzell first. She nodded quickly, so I shook his hand. "Hello. Nice to meet you. Sorry about that. It's my first day here," I said apologetically. He sat back down. "No, I understand. Some of these people I wouldn't shake their hands, but you're a doctor or nurse. I'm sure you're fine." I asked him how he was feeling today, if he liked the food, if he was comfortable or needed anything. Each answer he gave me was clear and rational, to the point of me having to ask. "I'm sorry if this is out of line, and Dr. Marzell stop me if I'm overstepping, but Mr. Mack, you seem incredibly normal. Is your treatment ending?" He tried to smile at me, then his eyes, ever alert, searched the room again. "No, it's not ending. I hope not anyway." He looked at me, saw the confusion on my face, then leaned in. "Do you know how many guys come back from Afghanistan and have to get admitted?" he asked. I felt like it was a number I should know, a statistic I owed the servicemen and women, but truthfully, I didn't have a clue, so I shook my head. "That's because that number is bad for business, bad for recruitment. A lot of us go for PTSD, shell shock, you know." I wanted to understand, but I said the only thing I did know. "But you wouldn't be sent to this hospital for that." "This hospital, it's for other things." His eyes locked onto mine. It's from me. People like me. The ones who saw what's out there in the hills, hidden from the rest of the world, the shit nobody talks about. Such as? I asked, feeling enraptured by this man. He took a deep breath in and let the crazy out. That's probably what I would have thought if I hadn't been working at Dearth Mercy for a few months already. The giants. There's not so many of them left now, but the ones that are left, they're huge and they're strong. Strong as hell. Strong enough to take multiple shots and keep coming, ripping apart my men, using old tank barrels as clubs. The Afghans know about them. They keep away from them. They know the places to avoid. We didn't know shit. We were in their desert. I leaned back, taking in what he said because it was ridiculous. But even worse, it was most likely true. Thankfully, Dr. Marzell took over. Lance Corporal Mack is the only surviving member of a 20-man unit. He was found guilty of murdering 10 men in his unit. I didn't, he said loudly, revealing some of the reason he was a patient in this ward. Marzell leaned forward and put a tender hand on his knee. Her voice became soft and understanding, causing Mac to close his eyes and nod slowly. Mac, I know you did what you had to. Nobody here thinks you're a murderer. I couldn't let them live. Not like that, Mac said calmly, sadness in every word. Marzell stood and kissed the top of Mac's forehead, which I did not expect her to do at all. You did the right thing. They would have died horrible deaths. I'm sorry for what you had to do and what happened to you because of it. We will make you better. I promise that. Then she walked away. I followed closely behind her, and once we were out of his immediate hearing range, she explained what happened to Lance Corporal Mack. She told me how the giants didn't just kill their victims. They ate them. Not all at once, though apparently human meat was hard to come by in the desert. So they crushed the men's legs, snapped their spines in the perfect spot to immobilize them, without killing them so they would be fresh a little longer. Mac was lucky enough to have survived the initial attack somehow. He escaped the cave, but hearing the pleas of his brothers in arms, he made a choice. Without equipment or transport, he knew it would be impossible to save them, so one by one he killed the remaining 10, each one thanking him before he shot them. How he escaped after that is unclear. I didn't know what to say before I could dwell too much on it. She took Mac's paper from my small stack and tapped the next page. I read the details. Scott. That's all his info. It just says Scott. She gave her thin smile, then started for another area. I looked ahead and felt an odd relief when I saw a familiar face. It was like warmth had crawled inside of me and calmed me down a little bit, causing me to smile and give a small wave in his direction. Even though he wasn't looking at me, I felt a little foolish realizing that. It was a fleeting feeling, though, because the closer I got to this man, the more I couldn't figure out where I knew him from. He stood by himself, admiring a painting on a wall, about 5 feet 8 inches give or take, thin with glasses and a stubble beard. He looked a bit like a hipster that loitered in coffee shops. As we approached, I realized I had never met this man. Not really. Unless I had. Scott. Good evening, greeted Dr. Marzell with a bit of a tone. The man turned and smiled at us. I realized I didn't know this man at all and didn't want to. Doctor? Hello? How are you today? He asked politely. Fine, Marzell replied bluntly. The smile didn't fade from the man. He turned to me and extended his hand. Nice to meet you. I'm Scott. I wanted to shake it, to say hello to my old friend I didn't know. I also didn't want to touch him at all. It was a weird feeling that, fuck you, Scott, I said abruptly. My eyes went wide and I felt my face get red. I stepped back. I'm so sorry. I don't know why. He sighed, and his smile became a little less. Dr. Marsall turned to face me. As she did, her scowl lessened up to my surprise. Scott here has a unique ability to be hated. It's nothing he does as you just saw, but something about looking at him creates a feeling of familiarity that I'm sure you felt. He also creates a feeling of uncomfortableness, and in some cases dislike up to the point of hate. He turned back towards the painting. I immediately felt my distaste for the man ease up until he spoke, and I felt like punching his stupid face. I wasn't always like this, he said, which I rolled my eyes out because of course a douchebag like him would say that. Then something happened, and my wife tried to kill me for it. I was fired. My own mother told me how much she hated me. All because... At this, Marsall raised her eyebrows. Because of what, Scott? She asked, still looking at me. I looked past her, to the back of Scott. He turned back to us, and I wanted to spit on him. He smiled and shook his head. Never mind, forget it. His smile was sly, hiding something. We can't help you until you tell us, Scott, Marsall said, still not looking at him. Thank you, Doctor. Have a good evening, Scott replied. Marsall rolled her eyes and took me by the arm as we walked away. I heard her mutter the word prick as we walked, and finally, when we were about 10 feet from him, she relaxed and turned back to him. His condition makes it very hard to treat him. It's getting easier for me after all this time. I used to not even get near him for fear I would strike him. From here, I can tell you he's well-mannered and respectful. Any closer, and I'd be conspiring to hurt him, she said, matter-of-factly. I understood perfectly as I adjusted myself to not even see him in my peripheral vision. What did he do? I asked, now with curiosity and care. She shook her head. We aren't sure. He won't tell us. Whatever it was, though, was bad enough that he was cursed to be hated by everyone. Until we know what he did, treatment is very slow. She took his paper from my hands, I'm sure fighting the urge to crumble it up. This name, I did know for sure. Lena. I immediately started looking around, a little surprised I hadn't noticed her before. Dr. Marsall gestured to the back of the room, and I saw her. Wearing scrubs she had cut to look a little more risque. She was seated about 10 feet or more from a small group of 6 people, staring intently at a fuzzy big-screen television. It's not even on a channel. Boys, put something on at least. You're driving me crazy, said the doll's face in her usual sing-song girlish voice. Why is she still wearing the mask? I asked Marsall while we were still far enough away not to be noticed. Do you see those men staring at the TV? She asked. Yes, unsure of what this had to do with Lena. They were all very normal men shopping in a Best Buy until one TV in particular caught their eye. One at a time they gathered and watched it, all day long. Something about that television connected to those men. To treat them, we need to understand the television. Lena is sort of the same way. To understand her, we need to understand Dollface. But do me a favor. When you speak, I want you to speak to Lena directly. I nodded understanding, and we continued to her. When she noticed us, she jumped up excitedly, and like a puppet on a string, her body moved and jerked without her intent. She bent over and put her hands on her knees, then pointed at me. It's you. She stood straight and held her hands out, displaying herself. What do you think? I made some alterations. Marsall walked closer to her. Where did you get the scissors? She asked. Dollface turned her face side to side. I forgot, said the rubber and plastic face. Scott gave them to us, muttered the girl underneath. Marsall held a hand out, palm up. Lena went to her seat, lifted up the cushion, and removed a pair of scissors from under it, a pair she handed to Marzell. "Thank you, Lena," said Marzell. Dollface rolled her eyes. "Lena, how are you?" I asked. The doll's face made an angry look, and the girl underneath responded, "I'm all right. Thank you." "She's losing weight finally. A whole pound, can you believe it?" The dollface mocked. "Please stop," Lena whispered to the mask. Then shouting from across the room, "Kill me! Just do it like you killed your friends!" Dollface hopped up, startled. Marzell and I turned to see an older man yelling at Mac. "Do it! Make it stop, please!" Mac was standing, with his fists clenched at his sides. "Nurse!" he called out. "Get him away from me!" Dollface took a step towards me, wrapping her arms around one of mine as if we were dating. "Ooh, exciting," whispered the plastic girl's face. "Is he all right?" asked Lena from underneath. I gently removed Lena's hands from my arm. Marzell went forward. I followed. In a flash, she whipped out a syringe I didn't know she had, and with one motion stuck it into the man's neck and pressed a button, sending whatever was inside directly into his bloodstream. He turned and collapsed immediately. Max stepped back. "I wasn't going to kill him," he said quickly. "I'm not a murderer." Marzell went to him and comforted him. I know, Jerry is just... He's in pain all of the time," she said. I helped another nurse lift up Jerry. We moved him away, while more nurses went out to calm the rest of the bunch down. "Put him in a glass room for now," ordered Marzell. The other nurse acknowledged, and someone took over for me. After a few minutes, when the room was quiet again, Marzell returned to me. "Jerry is the patient I mentioned last week. He was one of the first to see the Mothman so very long ago," she explained. "I've heard of Mothman. Why does Jerry want to die, though?" I asked, thinking back to what little I knew of the Mothman of Point Pleasant. "Catching a glimpse is one thing. It won't do much. Jerry met it face to face. It infected him, stayed with him. He's heard it in his head ever since, asking if he's lost, telling him about every disaster and mass death event happening across the world. That could be good, right? Maybe he could help stop those things from happening," I asked. Marzell shook her head. "No, happening now, or very soon. Never in time for him to do anything. Then it goes on to list the names of every victim. The poor man was 12 when he saw the Mothman. He turned 78 this year. Can you imagine hearing the names of every person dying for so long? He just wants to die. I can't say I blame him." I stood in the center of the main room, looking at the patients. Dozens more than I mentioned. "Just what kind of patients are in the glass rooms?" I asked. Marzell looked past me towards the double doors Jerry was just pulled into. "Those patients are categorically dangerous to themselves and others. They have powers we don't yet understand. The rule maker, Mary Lister, was the one leaving all these damn rules for people to follow. The daughter. Elizabeth, who was adopted 14 times, and each time her parents died somehow. The first victim, Miko. He was the first human to hear an elder god speak. It's hard to treat everyone, because what drug would you give Lena to stop her from putting on another face? How much therapy can you give the men stuck watching that television before you realize nothing is working? "Have you tried breaking the TV?" I asked. "We did. Took hammers to it. It just repaired itself." She sighed. "Oh well, would you like to see the glass rooms?" she asked. I did, of course I did, but I wish I hadn't. Because through fate or destiny, or maybe even plain old coincidence, I just had to go into the glass rooms right then. She led me to the double doors, and I pushed them open. A nurse from behind calmly caught Marzell's attention with a simple, "Excuse me, doctor?" possibly to ask something completely innocent about paperwork or something. But doing this at that perfect time changed everything. And so she turned away in the moment that would have put her in the hallway with me. Just as the sound of glass shattering erupted from through the doors I had just passed through. It all happened so quickly that I remember looking back to Marcel, who was still in the main room, as the containment door dropped behind me with a loud mechanical thud and click as it sealed. It was a hard, glass-like material with some weird symbol painted on it. The lights switched off, replaced by red emergency lights. On the other side of the see-through door, Marcel looked shocked, then nervous. "Alec," she said, then she whipped around. "Get this door open now," she commanded. "We can't." One of the glass rooms was breached. "It's on lockdown," a nurse shouted back. I touched the containment door, felt the ward symbol vibrate, and turned around to see a dark but dimly lit red-hued hallway, and the sound of crunching glass as something left its prison. All my time at Dearth Mercy, and to this day my experiences in the psych ward, still give me nightmares. I lay awake for hours, imagining myself back in that hallway of glass rooms, surrounded by people too dangerous to be with the general population, thinking that I was going to die right there in that corridor that was lit only with red emergency lights. I remember the crunching of glass as the, at the time, unknown entity walked towards me. I prayed to God right then, begging him and telling him that I don't want to die in this place. But it was after the glass rooms, in the dark rooms, that I prayed I would die. End the misery, the torment, the pain. It's been some time since I was trapped behind the warded door, sealed off from the main floor while Dr. Marzel tried everything she could to free me. I remember the day I met her. She told me that some of her patients had once done the same rotations as me, meaning that somewhere along the way they had lost their minds. I have to assume it was there in the rooms of glass and darkness. That day, when the door fell and trapped me in the glass rooms, I saw the look on Marzel's face. It was shock, then fear. She didn't know which patient had escaped yet, only that one of them had somehow broken through its glass cage. I bet she was hoping somehow it was just Jerry, the man haunted by the Mothman. But really, I didn't think for a second that a suicidal geriatric had the ability to break whatever these see-through cages were made of. The thing that walked up to me in that hallway was a man, like me, in every physical way. I saw myself walking through that dark hallway, walking barefoot over the bits and pieces of the remnants of a broken cell. The red lights cast angry shadows underneath it, me, when it was close enough that I could see every feature on its face. It spoke in my voice. "Are you a doctor?" it me asked. My eyes searched for any difference, any feature not perfectly matched, but from what I could see in that little bit of real light that came through the warded door, this thing was an exact copy of me. "No, I'm a nurse," I told the thing. It cocked its head sideways like a confused dog. "What is a nurse?" it asked simply. I'm a caregiver. I help the doctors treat patients. I make them comfortable, and when I can, I treat them too," I replied, answering in the simplest way I could think at the time. If this was an interview, I'm sure I would have thought of a dozen ways to explain what a nurse is. But there at that moment, the basics had to be enough. The thing seemed to process my reply for a moment before deciding that I was not a doctor. It me nodded understanding, then took a step closer to the warded door that separated us from the main floor. "I felt you," it said softly, "and I wanted to meet you. Could you get out whenever you wanted?" I asked. The thing that looked like me nodded, then looked back towards the hallway. "The others, they cannot. I do not intend to release them. Their minds are still broken, not destroyed, but broken." "Why did you want to meet me?" I asked nervously. "Your mind is cracked, expanding. Not broken? Not yet. Is the doctor treating you? It asked. I didn't say anything right away, didn't acknowledge it, didn't know what to say at all. The thing seemed to accept that and moved even closer to the door, causing me to step away. Dr. Marsall, the thing said. I looked past it into the main room to see Marsall wringing her hands together. Enneman? Why did you escape your room? She asked quickly. Is this man your patient? It asked. Marsall's eyes shot to me, then she shook her head. No, he's a nurse that works with me, a student, she said. The thing slowly lifted one hand and pressed it to the warded glass. A gentle single crack was heard, causing Marsall to hold up her hands towards the two of us. He's not yet, she said. The thing looked at me, nodded. Only cracks for now, it said softly. Marsall nodded. I, completely confused and scared, looked from the thing she called Enneman to Marsall. What does that mean? What does he mean, cracks? I asked her. The copycat looked at me, then out towards Marsall. She took a hesitant step closer to us. Alec, on the wall is a small door that looks like a breaker box. Inside is a bag filled with white cloth. She told me. White cloth? Did you say white cloth? Why? I asked quickly, thinking back to the infectious disease that had caused two other nurses' mouths to split at the seams and the patient to barely survive. I pulled at my scrubs that were made of white cloth material and searched them in the low light. My scrubs, they're normal. They look normal. Nothing's infected me, I shouted to her. She didn't respond to that. She only said, Take the white cloth, Alec. Press it to your forehead. The copycat named Enneman watched me as I slowly moved around it and to the wall. I opened the small door and removed the bag. Inside were several things for first aid, among them a small pile of white cloth. With shaking hands, I grabbed one from the pile and pressed it to my forehead while returning to the warded door. After just a moment, I removed the cloth and checked it. Marsall also took a step closer to see through the door. The cloth had a single black line across it. I pressed it to the glass containment door. What does that mean? I demanded. Am I infected with something? Alec, calm down, it's only cracks, she said softly. What does that mean? I shouted. Am I infected? A million possibilities attacked my mind. I saw myself covered in that black nail-eating fungus. I saw myself screaming as my face peeled up around my head. I saw horrible scenarios playing out in my mind. She nodded, and I felt my heart double beat. With what? I asked, weakness in my voice and in my knees as I felt the urge to go limp. Madness. But it's just a little bit. Treatable, I swear it, she explained. The way you reacted to Scott. The outburst you caused Jerry. The way Lena gravitates to you. I suspected it. Before she could go on, Enneman pressed a hand to the glass, and as if it was a switch, the containment door was no longer transparent. It was black. I didn't hear it, but apparently Marsall cried out for me when this happened. Then the lights flickered on, replacing the red hue with a soft normal glow. Enneman turned to face the long hallway. Me began to walk forwards, and without anything else I could do, I followed. The copycat walked slow, walked past the first two glass rooms that were empty, and stopped on the third, where Jerry stood in the center of the room. His back was towards us, and for some reason the entire opposite wall was covered in darkness. Enneman stopped and stared inside. This man has madness, he explained, as if we were in a gallery, and maybe we were from a creature that existed before the world, a creature called Mothman, but it is neither moth nor man, of course. He stepped closer to the glass, hoping to see what Jerry was looking at, and for a second I thought I saw an outline of a towering thing with wings tucked behind it, and the faintest glow of red eyes. Then nothing. It was all so faint that I was sure I had imagined it. Before light, there was only darkness. When the light was birthed, all manner of beings fled it, or it frightened them, while others were dazzled by its brilliance. That is how the Mothman came to this world. It has latched onto this man. He cannot be saved. Then the thing that looked like me touched the glass, and Jerry simply fell to the ground. Red eyes flashed brightly on the wall he had been staring at, and at once the blackness that covered the wall moved. The towering figure stepped out of it, dragging the blackness behind it like it was a cape. The newly visible creature howled and screamed and slammed its face into the glass. I stepped back out of fear, while Enemin again cocked his head to the side. The creature howled once more and braced itself to charge forward. Enemin tapped the glass once, and as the creature dove towards the glass that separated us, before it could hit it, the thing was simply gone, removed, leaving only a glass room with a corpse in the middle. Enemin turned to me. It will sleep, then find another, never truly gone. He turned and continued down the hall to the next room. I can't even describe what it felt like as I walked side by side with something that looked like me, only naked. We walked room to room, and each time Enemin would stop and explain the thing inside. A tour guide walking me through a museum of horrors. Some he would calmly say could be saved, and we moved on. Others just as calmly he would kill with the tap of his finger on the glass. We walked and walked, each room the same, but massively different than the last. Each person inside was hurt by some outside force of evil. Some were asleep, some were pacing, some merely stared back at us through the glass. The list maker, the daughter, on and on, we visited them, while Enemin judged if they were beyond fixing or not. After maybe a dozen rooms, we stopped at a man that was older, dark complexion, grizzled hair, and very prominent features that gave him the appearance of a caveman. He noticed me, then looked to Enemin. "Ah, the judge," he said flatly. "I'm afraid you'll get no joy from me." "Continue your work," the strange man said. His tone was a little bored. Enemin studied the man for some time, then turned to me. This man was the first human to hear an elder god speak. He was the first of your kind to know madness, true madness, and for that, I cannot judge him. The man looked at me. "You've got it." He looked me up and down. "No, just a little bit." "What are you waiting for?" he asked. I wanted to say I'm not mad, I'm not crazy, but there I was, talking to a man that talked to a god, and walking side by side with a copycat that had just killed more than half the patients in the glass room without touching them. So becoming insane was entirely possible. The judge, Enemin, continued to walk. I stood firmly, then stepped closer to the man in the glass room. "What is he? Why does he look like me?" I asked the possible caveman. The man inside sighed. "He's a patient here, like all of us, but he dwells in the dark rooms." "No, he escaped from a glass room. I heard the glass break. He was in one of these rooms," I told him. "You heard what he wanted you to hear. That is no man, or it is every man." He snorted a laugh. "Any man? Either way, he belongs in the dark rooms." He then turned to me and his eyes seemed to sparkle. He smiled. "You know, when the god talked to me, he told me things no human has the ability to know. He told me of everything that has ever existed, or will. He told me the rules of reality and madness, and he did it all with a single word. He told me how to understand everything. I suppose that's why I'm more than human. Would you like to know what that word was?" He looked at me deeply, like a salesman or an interrogator. He looked at me with hunger. The longer I hesitated, the more he seemed to nearly foam at the mouth. And truthfully, yes, I did want to know the word. What word could make a man more than human? Was it me that wanted to know? Or was it part of his unnatural gifts from the elder god? I leaned forward. Alec, the copycat said from down the hall. My voice pulled me back like a lifeline. I blinked several times, then stepped back from the man in the glass room. The ancient man sighed, then said, "Go on now, leave me be." And I did. He dismissed me with a wave, and only then did I look ahead and notice that Enemin had stopped walking and was just waiting patiently for me. I caught up to him and we continued. The next room was covered in writing from floor to ceiling, words in every language, and some that looked like hardly more than random lines. This patient cuts off people's tongues to learn their language. How would you judge her? Enemin asked. I took a step closer and looked at the thin woman inside, scribbling words between other words on the floor. She looked around vigorously for a space to write in. She either didn't notice us or chose to ignore us. I don't know, I said honestly. Enemin tapped the glass once, and she stopped writing, forever. It was as simple as that, and Enemin offered no remorse or explanation. This process went on for 4 more rooms. Each one met the same judgment from Enemin. Then we reached another containment door at the end of the hall. This one, though, had a large circle that looked like it had been cut open. Enemin stepped inside. I followed. "These are the dark rooms," Enemin said, a bit obviously. We were in another hallway, but where the glass rooms had been transparent. Each of these rooms was pure black, with only a white door allowing for entry or exit. "What's back here?" I asked. "Things that can kill everything that lives," Enemin explained. "Are we worthy of your treatment? Can you give us care as you do for them?" Enemin asked, nodding back towards the way we came. I walked up to one of the dark rooms. Only my reflection in the blackness looked back at me. I felt a sudden wave of tiredness sweep over me. Exhaustion. Without being able to resist, I closed my eyes. A simple blink was all. And when I opened them, I was staring at Enemin, who was still outside in the hallway. I felt the glass between us. "Enemin?" I said at first, confused. Then I panicked and slammed my fist against the glass. "Enemin!" I shouted, feeling the darkness crawl over me like smoke. Enemin, wearing my face, only looked back at me. No smile, no empathy, nothing. Just my own face watching the darkness swallow me. I screamed, and I cried as my vision failed me. Were my eyes open or closed? There was no difference. The blackness was truly overwhelming. Sound was gone. Rational thought was gone. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I couldn't hear the echo of my own screams. It was like I existed and didn't. I was gone. The time I spent in the dark rooms was like an eternity, and maybe it was. I lived without hunger or thirst. I slept for minutes, days, maybe even years. It was simple and pure black, yet it was chaos every day, each moment dragging on into infinity, until finally I heard a soft, buzzing voice in the darkness. "Are you lost?" the voice asked. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to hear this thing speak to me because I hadn't heard anything in so long. But the buzz, like fluttering wings, like a high-pitched hum, kept me silent, kept me nervous. "Are you lost?" the voice repeated. I had heard that before, long ago, a detail about one of my patients. An insane man in an insane place. "No," I said back firmly, and I didn't hear the voice again. For another eternity, or maybe just a few minutes. Then, suddenly, a light switched on. My pupils dilated for the first time in who knew how long, and although it pained me, I kept them open. As I looked into the face of Dr. Marzell, I was on my back, and she was shining a small light into my eyes. I blinked several times and sat up. "He's awake. Did he dream?" "Dream of me, I bet," said a sing-song voice from somewhere else. I looked past Marzell to see Dollface smiling wide. I wanted to cry in happiness. I was so happy to see just someone that I forgot the doll's face sewn onto her own was irregular. Marzell looked at me curiously. "Are you all right?" she asked. I shook my head, afraid to speak because what if nothing came out? I swallowed hard, then touched my throat and gently tried to respond. "No, I'm not all right." What happened?" I asked. "You passed out before we could go to the glass rooms," she said, her voice caring and curious. I turned and looked at the double doors that led to those back rooms of glass and darkness. I felt a chill sweep over me, and reflexively I tried to crawl away. Marzell put a hand on my shoulder as I had nearly crawled into her lap. "Alec, it's all right, you're all right," she assured me. "No, I can't go in there. Not again," I cried, literally cried with tears streaming down my face. "Again?" She looked at me, stunned, then looked towards the doors to the glass room. "What did you see?" she asked me. "Enemin, please, I can't, I repeated, hearing myself speak words for the first time felt surreal, like one of my dreams, but this was real. Feeling was real. Feeling my heartbeat, seeing the room around me. It was all real. The color drained from her face. "How do you know that name?" she asked quietly, in little more than a whisper. "Who is Enemin?" one of the nurses at my side asked her. Without looking at me, Marzell hissed for the nurse to be quiet, as if saying its name too loudly would awaken it. She turned towards the doors, and I could see the fear on her face. "Something that lives in the dark rooms. Something horrible we don't talk about," she said very carefully. It took a month for me to recover physically from that. I was in a room in Dearth Mercy the entire time, a victim of horror. My muscles had been broken down severely, I was dehydrated, and my eyes still wouldn't dilate properly. The therapy is ongoing, both physically and mentally. Some sessions are easier than others, and some are so bad I swear I'm still in the dark rooms, and this is all in my head. But those are the thoughts we are working on keeping out of my head. Writing things down has helped. Sharing my story, my experiences. My name is Alec Duff. I'm a nurse for victims of horrors, and I am also a patient.